The rich don't tell people what they know. One of my best friends just sold his business for $2 billion. And I asked him to come and speak at my company. He says, no, they don't want to tell people what they do. So there is a rich dad. When I asked him if he would help me, he says, no. My poor dad wanted me to be a pilot, fly for the airlines, and be an employee. And I went, I don't want to do that. So I asked my rich dad, what should I do? And he was my best friend's father. I want to be an entrepreneur like him and an investor. He says, you have to learn how to sell. Well, this is the interesting thing, Vlad. My poor dad in my family, because they're all PhDs, right, teachers, they thought salesmen were the scum of the earth. My rich dad said to me, you have to get a job in sales. And I said, I don't want to learn how to sell. I don't want to sell. You know, tell me something. Tell me what I can do. I'll go back to school. He says, you have to sell. And finally, rich dad said to me, he says, because I was arguing, he says, Robert, how's your sex life? I looked at my rich dad and I said, I don't have a sex life. Because you can't sell, you idiot. So with that, I went against, again, my poor dad's wishes, you know, PhD, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern, and I got hired by Xerox to learn how to sell. And so again, my poor dad was all upset because I became a salesman.
So you're working at Xerox, and then at age 30, back in 77, you decided to start your first company,
right,
which was called Rippers.
Right.
So what happened with this first company?
Well, it was wasn't my first company, but when I was at the academy in New York and thinking my first venture, I'm still at Xerox, and I figured, what's my first product? And my friends and I said, well, that wallet you carry is kind of interesting. And it was a crude little wallet, so we took that wallet to Korea. We had them make them, and we imported them back to the States. We were very, very successful. So the wallets were taking off all over the world, and I was out of money. We couldn't supply the demand. You know, it takes a lot of money to buy inventory. So we're out of wallets, and then my CFO at the time, I didn't trust the guy, but anyway, because he was willing to work for basically for free, his name was Stanley. So he said, raise some money. So I raised another $100,000 from my poor dad. He's a good guy, my dad was. He says, if this is what you want to do, be an entrepreneur, I'll support you. Rich dad turned me down. He says, why should I give you money? Because you're an idiot. You have a bunch of crooks as partners, which was true. And he says, I'm not going to help you. My poor dad did. So I gave the check to my CFO, Stanley. And I said, Stanley, will this solve the problem? And he smiled, yes, it will. And it did solve the problem. His problem. He took that check, cashed it, and paid off his investors. So I was out of money. I sold all my investors, including my poor dad, and we went down. And so that was one of the first lessons kind of I learned about real life is you got to be careful who you do business with. And just because a guy's a CPA and another guy's got his MBA doesn't mean they're honest people. And that's really one of the hardest things I had to learn is a college degree doesn't mean you're honest. And the whole business went down because Stanley ran off with the money.
Okay, and you filed for bankruptcy?
No, I never did.
Oh, you never did? Okay.
But the experience was good because I learned a lot. And from there, went back to real estate, started making my money back there. I paid off my father. It was one of the best lessons I ever had, Vlad.
Okay, so you leave Xerox in 1978 at age 31.
Yeah.
And then by 1980, you started another company where you were licensing heavy metal rock band t-shirts.
Yeah.
And you used the money from this company to start investing in stocks and real estate?
I never invest in stocks. I don't trust the stock. I don't trust the stock market. You can. I'm not saying don't do it. I just don't trust them. So I like real estate because I'm the investor. I don't need to trust anybody else. So anyway, the point is on that, I got into heavy metal simply because there was this company called 98 Rock in Honolulu. And I got into 98 Rock. We took that brand worldwide. And then a band called Pink Floyd called me. And the rock bands contacted me. And there was another band called Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Van Halen, Boy George, and the Police. Same problem, too much success. We couldn't finance the inventory. You know what I mean? Success is not easy. And again, it was another lesson, but thank God I had the lessons before that. And it's just been one big experience to keep learning.
Well, then by 1985, the rock t-shirt company went under as well. And you're 39 years old at this point.
No, it didn't really go under. I just got kind of tired of it. And what I was starting to do was teach at that time. And so all through my life, I studied Bucky Fuller. And he got to me. One day I was teaching, I was with him at a seminar. He asked the question, he says, what does God want you to do? He says, all of us are born with a purpose in life. He says, what does God want you to do? And he got to me, if you know what I mean. And I said, well, we don't teach money at school, and I think I do understand about money now. And with that point, I started to teach entrepreneurship for free in Hawaii. And I was just teaching games via games, encouraging people to make mistakes and how to learn from your mistakes. So that was the process. So it wasn't about me getting smarter, making them smarter. It was basically teaching them how to make mistakes and get the principles. You know, like if you're a baby and you fall down, you learn something. So my biggest lessons was learning from people I thought were smarter than me, like the accountants and the attorneys. And they turned out to be crooks. Do you know what I mean? It was my lesson, because I thought, like, my poor dad was a PhD, I should listen to him, but he was poor. But people listen to poor people, if you know what I mean. And so that teaching in Hawaii wound up to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I just told the story of two dads, and that became what I'm supposed to do.